Hey guys, so in today's video, I wanted to share just some things that might help those of you who are feeling nervous or afraid or concerned with starting a new medication, especially with some of those biologics out there. It's something that I've heard from several of you guys in the comments, and it was a common thing that was brought up by families back when I worked in the rheumatology clinic. So I'm hoping that by sharing some of these things to consider, it'll help you be able to make the best decision for you as far as what direction you want to go, as far as like the world of medications go. So these points are in no particular order, and they're things, they're just things for you to consider. So if something resonates with you, take it in. If it does not resonate, then just leave it alone. So the first one is if you haven't already had a conversation or maybe a couple conversations with your healthcare provider about your concerns, I think that would be a really good starting point. Sometimes I have found that just sharing my concerns with the person was enough to move that anxious energy that I kind of just would let fester within me by just keeping these concerns to myself. It's like letting it all fester into this huge wad of like fear, and sometimes that can be enough. And then sometimes you never know, your provider might be able to say whatever it is that can address those concerns, and you guys make a decision from there. So I encourage you to give that voice if you haven't yet with your healthcare provider. Another thing that I wanted to share too that did not always click in my mind when I was in that like nervous fear space is that you can always stop the medication. If you're concerned as far as insurance goes, because with a lot of the biologics, insurance wants you to try it for 90 days before trying something new. If you try it and you're having unwanted side effects or some sort of reaction, you do not have to continue taking the medication for the full 90 days. That whatever reaction that you had, like that by itself is like reason enough for the trial to not be successful or trial failure, So if that's your concern, you don't have to go and deal with the reaction for like 90 days. If it's not one of those insurance things and you're just kind of concerned about the medication, and you might feel better knowing how to safely stop taking the medication, then I would encourage you to have a conversation with your healthcare provider, because they would be able to tell you if there's a weaning period or not. So, like, if it was a new medication and I wasn't sure and I thought that it might not, like, I might want to stop it, I would go and ask them if is there some sort of weaning period with this medication if I chose to stop it. Some medications you can just immediately stop and it's fine. There's some medications like prednisone, for those of you guys are familiar, where like in certain doses, you need to wean it to give your body time to safely adjust to it not being in your system. It's the equivalent of gently putting the brakes to stop the car that's driving instead of putting the emergency brake when you're still driving really fast and there's like a uncomfortable like whiplash effect, kind of like that. So if it helps you to have a conversation again with your healthcare provider and find that out beforehand, or when you finally are like, look, I'm ready to stop this, then at the very least you can do it safely. And I think it's a very empowering gift for yourself to be able to be like, okay, I have the tools to be able to stop this if I need to. The other thing that I would like to share is that you don't have to make this decision alone. And you don't have to put all of you don't have to put the decision fully in one box. So what I mean by that is there are like three areas, I'll say, like three perspectives that I found have been really helpful for me that I think is important when it comes to making any sort of, medication, surgical, really any decision that comes with your health and well-being, but medications too. And that is there's your healthcare team. They have expertise and they can make recommendations. And that is an important piece of like an important perspective. Then there's your body's wisdom. So the trend could be whatever it is that, like, for most people it does well, but if your body's wisdom is like, nope, this is not for me, or this is not the correct amount for me, like we need to adjust the dose or something, that's pretty important too. That's another piece that I think we're not really taught to tune into. And so what I found with me personally is like my doctor will recommend some sort of medication, and I didn't realize it was my body's wisdom, but I'm feeling some sort of dissonance, and it's not from a rational like standpoint, like that you argue rationally. It's just like, no, I'm getting information from my body. And if I ignored that and solely relied on what my doctor was telling me, then I would feel this like dissonance and tension in my body. And it wasn't pleasant. And then it's just like it created a whole lot of problems and a lot of stress that honestly none of us need any extra stress. So that's the second part. And then the third part I'm gonna call inner guidance. So that could be whatever that is to you. It could be your higher self, your guides, we call it spirit, God, whatever name you have for it, intuition, inner knowing, whatever word you have for that, like inner guidance that is beyond rational and sometimes beyond feeling, but still kind of mixes in with the two in a weird way. It's hard to really describe. But however you get that inner guidance, that is another perspective that I did not listen to when it came to making choices on my treatment. And then I would feel I would feel like a conflicted kind of dissonance, and I would feel more anxious and things like that. So healthcare team, body's wisdom, inner guidance, like those three things helped me feel like I was not alone and the choice wasn't all on my shoulders. And at the same time, I still honored and included my own wisdom and knowledge, so to speak, in that sense, like that wisdom in addition to what the expertise that comes from like my healthcare provider. I think that combination is really important. So if that helps, I hope that helps. What else? So the other point is that there are many people, I know there are some people who are sensitive to biologics or particular classes of medications. Some does not equal all. So there are many people who actually do well and do not have side effects with these various medications. So I find for me, when I'm in a fear space, I'm only looking at all of the stuff that I'm only looking at the stories and the negatives and the negative possibilities, and I completely ignore the possible positive possibilities that could come from trying a medication or whatever it is, for your health and your well-being. So if you're in that space, or you might be helpful to balance, look at it a little more balanced instead of just or finding yourself hyper focusing on just the negative, like kind of bringing it back to center a little bit, it can really help tone down some anxiety that way too, because you're looking at a more expanded picture instead of being focused on like a smaller piece, if that makes sense. And I say this separately from like whatever you're getting from like your body's wisdom or like combos with your healthcare provider or your inner guidance. Sometimes it's just a fear space, which is a little separate from those other things I talked about, which requires discernment, practicing discernment. And the last thing that I wanted to share, just to consider, kind of piggybacking on what I talked about before, is that everyone's body is different. Everyone's sensitivities physically and energetically is different to different foods, medications, and things. So with that said, sometimes it may take exploring multiple things to find that combination that works for you. I feel like a lot of times we're sold this idea that there's just this one thing that we need to do or try to fix a very complex issue. And I have found, and a lot of people that I've talked to have found that it's taken more of a combination, more of the right combination of things. And for me, when I say that, I mean both. It may be a combination of medications at certain dosages or frequencies. It may also be a combination as far as allopathic medicine, alternative / naturopathic medicine, and or things that I wouldn't really count as alternative or naturopathic. It's just not like our allopathic, like prescription medications, if that makes sense. So like something, yeah, like something that's like non-prescription, I guess is what I'm saying. Sometimes it just takes finding the right combination of those things. And then the other mini point to add on to that is that can change. So, we grow and we evolve, and sometimes our body's needs also will grow and evolve and change. So something that might work for a long time might, the needs might change, and you need something else. The body might need something else. And that's okay. That's okay. That does not mean that there was something wrong that you did or didn't do, kind of thing. Sometimes things just change. So, yeah. I hope that these points were very helpful for you. And again, take what resonates and leaves what doesn't. If there's something I did not mention that you found really helpful, I would love for you to share it in the comments, just to help other people who are earlier in this journey, or they're back at that point again where they have to start exploring another new combination of stuff that works for them. I think it's helpful still to hear from fellow people that are going through it, you know what I'm saying, or who have gone through it. So, yeah, with that, the last thing I'll add is that I invite you to, if you either trust that you will find the combination that works for you, or if you're not at that point yet, because I know it's like to not be at that point where I'm not really, really, truly like feeling that, perhaps being open to the possibility that you will find the right combination of things and therapies and stuff that works well for you and works well for your body. Because I know some of y'all have been exploring stuff for a long time. So with that said, I will see you guys in another video. Bye.